Sorry, I think I'm a minute late. I thought I pressed live actually, but it looks like I wasn't yet live. So let's just see. Let's just see if this actually does finally go live because I'm hoping that you guys will be able to see. Trying to refresh. Oh, yes, fantastic. It looks like we are finally live. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fantastic. So there is something happening, but I'm still seeing. Fantastic. That looks like there is some action happening. There's some colors that are happening. It makes me look a bit red, so I need to actually drop the temperature just a bit. Make sure that I start looking a bit normal. Top of the morning, everyone. Top of the morning. Welcome to Tshidi's live stream. It's one of those where we honestly trying very hard to make sure that we have a much more exciting stream with you guys today. And we get to speak about CVs because I think I've had a conversation from some of the guys that have reached out recently to ask me about CVs to say, how do I make the best resume possible? And today's live is literally to try and deal with that and make sure that we give as much people, as much information to people as possible. So that's basically what today's session is about. It's about going through the resumes, how to make sure that you get the best resume, and yeah, and make sure that you have the right conversations with the right people. What are some of the things that you want to highlight in your resume? So that's basically what we're going to be focusing on. So I see there's 3 people already on YouTube that are sitting there. Thank you so much for joining me on YouTube. And then there's actually about 28 that are currently on LinkedIn. If you have any questions that you want me to address today, please by all means start typing them in. I will make sure that I put those questions up as we go along. And then also at the same time, I'll also try and make sure that as we go along, I try to answer some of the questions that have come up so far from all of you guys. But like I said, today's session is going to be very, very simple. I'm going to be dealing with a few things. Number one is there's normally different types of resumes that you can put together. One of the most important things about resumes is you need to make sure that your resume speaks to the job that you've actually applied to. And everything that we've got and everything that I will show you guys will be something that anybody and everybody can use to make sure that you prepare yourself for the next job. So, like I said, if you do have any questions that you might have that you'd like to ask me, this would be the best time to actually start asking those questions. And then I will try and answer as many of them as possible throughout today's live stream. So yeah, man, welcome to this chat. So there is almost 40 people right now on LinkedIn. So I'm just gonna go through one or two things that I think are extremely important when it comes to understanding the formatting of resumes. Because as we said, good afternoon, Leboheng. Yep. We have our first comment from Leboheng saying good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming in and joining this live stream. And anybody else that's out there, please send your shout outs. For some reason, hey Floyd, good morning, or good afternoon. It's 5 minutes past 12, so I'm assuming that it's already afternoon through most of the places where I'm live streaming. So there are a few things that I actually want us to talk about when it comes to resumes. So number one is let's speak about the do's of a resume, and then we will also speak about the don'ts of a resume. And then from there, we will then go into a little quick live demo so that you guys can see some of the platforms that I keep on speaking about that I say are free and anybody else can use. So feel free to stop me halfway through if you think that you might want something or you might want to check one or two things. So the first thing that you need to actually understand when it comes to the do's of a resume is format your resume to fit 1 or 2 pages, if possible 3 pages. Anything more than 3 pages actually ends up just not making it exciting for the people that are looking at your resume. So I would say if it comes to formatting your resume, 2 to 3 pages are normally sufficient. And because also you don't want to put everything in there. There was a question also recently that somebody already asked recently what that said, what is the difference between a resume and a CV? And what I said to them was a CV is normally a bit more comprehensive because of the curriculum vitae. It's literally a full data set of your information, which will probably be some of the projects that you've worked on. So it's a longer process, it's a longer document, it normally even has a portfolio of evidence. So what normally people share with us, it's normally a resume, but then we've been so used to calling it a CV that, it's just the conversation that we all have when we say CV this, CV that. But the reality of it all is a resume is a summarized version of any document that you've got that you're submitting for the purpose of a job, whereas the CV is a longer version with a portfolio of evidence. So that's the main difference. So that's why we say format your resume to fit 1 to 2 pages or 3 pages if possible. And I'll show you the platform that can make this very, very possible. So it's going to be very, very good for you to be able to do that. So, and I see there is which course Nokwanda Ngwenya is there. Hi Tshidi, thank you so much. I will answer some of these questions. For some also strange reasons, some of my questions from LinkedIn are not necessarily coming into my stream. But yeah, we will work on something. We'll fix some of these things. So just hang in there for now. So yeah, that was the first thing. Second thing is be consistent throughout your resume. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is that the information that they share on the resume is not consistent. At the beginning of the resume, somebody will start using in the first person where it's like I this, I that, I that, and then halfway through they change to Tshidi this, Tshidi that, Tshidi that, where it becomes a third person. It doesn't really help you much because then you're not paying a bit of attention to detail when it comes to the content and the consistency of a resume. The other thing is when I speak about the consistency of a resume, when it comes to the dates, some people say, I worked from company X to from this date to this date, and then from company Y from this date to this date. After you've put together your resume, go back and look at what the dates look like, because sometimes you'll find that it says you've worked from company X from the 15th of January until the 17th of December, and then somebody then looks at it and it says I started at company Y from the 30th of November until the 1st of the next month. So the main question that we always have is that was there an overlap, or was it because you didn't pay attention to the resume? So try and simplify things and be a bit more consistent throughout, and go back and make sure that if you said you finished on this date, the only other possible date that you could start is the next date, or you might even start on the same date, who knows. But if you finished on this date, you need to be able to showcase that you've started the new job on the next date. The other thing is use only standard secular bullet points. Now, the reason why I say that, guys, is that there's so many different bullet points that you can use. You can use the ones with the little arrow. You can use the ones that have got little lines. There's so many different formats that you can do. What sometimes happens is that there's this thing that is called CV parsing. CV parsing is when you put your CV through a system, and the system determines by itself what information to actually share with the company that's coming up. You'll find that these ones with the arrow end up looking very, very weird, and they change the format of your resume on the CV parsing side of things. That's why we normally recommend just normal circular bullet points. They're a lot easier. They never are changed when there's a CV parsing. It normally stays exactly the same. The next thing that I speak about is use short sentences and bullet points to emphasize your strengths. Now, one of the things that people tend to make when it comes to resumes is that they tend to do sentences and they tend to do paragraphs. The problem is with a paragraph, a lot of people end up not really reading through exactly what you're trying to say. And with a paragraph, you have to try and make it make sense. If you finish the sentence with completed this and that, you have to try and make the sentence say, from that time on, then I did X, then from this time I did X. So it needs to actually then become sort of a full sentence and a full paragraph that makes sense. That's always not going to work for you. So that's why I always say bullet points, and maximum will always say 7 bullet points are normally a lot easier to stomach. If you put like 20 or 30 bullet points, people don't normally read through all those bullet points. So just try and summarize it as much as you can, and short little bullet points. Don't also put a 3 or 4 lines bullet points where it's still another paragraph that you've actually put there. The next thing says organize your content under appropriate headers. So that's also very important, so that if somebody looked at your resume just at high level, they need to be able to say, okay, based on this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Or the information that's here is reflecting to this. If you talk about your education, that's where the education will be. Don't put education here. And then at the bottom, you've got something about diplomas. And then you've got certificates, and you've got this. If it's education, if it's anything to do with education, try and bracket it within those bullet points. Match your resume style to your industry. There are so many different resume styles that I've seen. So sometimes you'll find that people put together a resume where, like marketing professionals, if you're a creative person, we expect to see a creative resume. I'm not saying that's what's going to get you the job, but I always say that's what makes you stand out. If you're in the creative arts and the industry side, make sure that resembles that. But if you have one of these resumes where it's very difficult to read because you put so many different graphs that, for you makes sense, but for the person reading it on the other side, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't always work. The last one, which is extremely important, is speaking about proofread your resume to make sure that it's perfect. Now, there's a lot of times where people will put one of their strengths being attention to detail. And 99% of the time, every time somebody puts that, if you go through that resume, there's normally 2 or 3 mistakes that they've made, which then also works against them really paying attention to detail. So those are, for me, some of the biggest do's of a resume that you need to actually look at. I'll jump back into the don'ts just now, but I thought I should actually just answer some of the questions that are here. And then from there, I'll jump back into the don'ts so that you guys know exactly what I think is a don't. Floyd says, what elements HR managers look for when going through your resume? Now, there are so many different things. Your skills are very important. Your duration in some of the companies is sometimes very important. If you're working in some companies as a contractor, please highlight that it was a contract role so that it doesn't look like you were just job hopping and jumping different roles. But to be honest, I think this job hopping conversation has now really changed quite a lot because there's so much that's happened in the last couple of years where a lot of people don't really worry too much about job hopping, except for certain roles that are required for you to be able to deliver specific projects that won't necessarily be delivered within a 2 or 3 months thing. So those are some of the things. And then the other things that I'll speak about, guys, will be what you need to use to actually make sure that you stand out. Nokwanda says, thank you so much for your top of the morning sessions. Thank you so much for participating in these. They've been a game changer for her. How do we tailor the CV for every job we apply for without finding yourselves copying the job description? That is fantastic. I'm going to jump into that one just a bit later. So maybe let me actually do the don'ts of a resume, and then I'll jump into Nokwanda's question about how do you tailor the resume in such a way that it actually stands out for the job that you're looking at, instead of just tailoring it and then it looks like you just copied and pasted that. So now there's a few things that I want to look at. The first thing that I want to look at, guys, is from a what do you call this? Sorry, it sounds like I'm a bit louder than I'm supposed to be, and that worries me. Now, from a resume point of view, guys, what you shouldn't do is use gimmicky or colorful fonts. Your font should be simple. It should be just black, and that's it. Please don't go and change the fonts into yellow and all those things. It might look pretty when you look at it yourself, but remember, there's so many different things that happen from the moment you actually send your resume to the time that it actually is received by the line manager. And sometimes you'll find that you're actually sending fonts to people that are colorblind and they might struggle to read some of these things. And people, because they're going through hundreds of CVs, end up looking at it and say, you know what, this person is not serious. So I always say, make sure that your fonts look very serious as much as you can. Second things is insert tables and graphs. As I mentioned earlier, remember one of the comments that I had, guys, is about match your resumes style to your industry. Yes, in some industries and some of the areas, you could actually insert tables and graphs, but just make sure that those tables are actually sort of picture formatted type of graphs and tables. Because if it is where you actually edit the table and the graph to the resume as you're working on it through some of the different formats, what then unfortunately then happens is if you send the CV and it's sent as a Word document, things could happen where it actually changes and then the words and everything is all over the place. So try and simplify what you can do. The other thing that I said was add graphics that don't make sense because some of the times people add all these graphics to say my skills are 9 out of 10 or my language skills are 9 out of 10. And then they've got these little nice pretty graphs. there's a few things that I always ask when it comes to that. How did you measure that in such a way that you're able to actually give it a 9 out of 10? It's sometimes very important that you're going to do something like that. You at least measure it in such a way that you can say, I have done X and this is how I was actually rated based on that. The next thing is select a resume template or format that's inappropriate for your goals and your background. Now, there are times when we have resumes and templates that we put on that we think, okay, this one is definitely going to work, and then we run with it, and then that's basically that. So it doesn't always work. The next thing is try and cram more information than necessary in your resume sections, where instead of actually adding up to 7 bullet points, you end up adding 15 to 20 bullet points. And then it just becomes these long things where each page has just got one about things about your job, the next job, and the next job. So literally you end up having 15 pages because you've literally tried to put as much information as that. Try and summarize it. In some cases, rephrase it in such a way that you can summarize some of the content. Always try and make sure that you justify your bullets, keep them aligned. What you shouldn't do is to make sure that you actually just put the bullet points and one is on the other side and the other one is next here, the other one is all over the place. So try and simplify it as much as you can. And then lastly, use all caps unless it's an acronym or name of something that is written that way. So sometimes when we get these things, it looks like you're screaming at people. So it's not always great that you actually have these bullet points where you've got these things where it's written in all caps, because then it looks like you're screaming at the people. So that's some of the things that I thought I should actually bring out when it comes to the resume do's and don'ts. So what I'm gonna try and do, guys, is I'm gonna quickly jump into one of the formats of a resume that I think would actually work. If you guys can see this, please let me know that you can actually see my canva.com. And I speak a lot about Canva, guys. Please note that Canva is not paying me for anything. So I'm not doing this because somebody's actually paying me and I'm trying to promote who they are. But I do it because I do think that what people sometimes need to realize is that there's quite a lot of free resources that are out there that you can actually use. As you can see, some of the things that you've got, you can do Instagram posts, stories, Zoom backgrounds, whatever you want. So once you get into your Canva account, guys, I'm just going to quickly jump into here. So once you get into your Canva account, this is basically what you'll then be able to see. Now, what you'll then get is what we have, which is a resume. So you click on here, and then what it does, if you click on this button, let me just go back so that I can show you guys. Okay, it says I should resubmit the data. I hate it when it does that. So if, for example, let's say I'm just going to go back quickly so that I can show you guys what I'm talking about. So like I said, this is basically what Canva, this is what I use quite a lot for a lot of things. So if you're here and you click create blank, it'll then literally give you a blank page, and I'll show you what the blank page looks like. But in some cases, all you have to do is just click on that little search thing, and then this is what you will have. Now, there's different ways of actually checking which ones are available. For example, majority of these are free. And what you'll also see is that there's normally the ones that are paid for is it'll have a little thing that you can see here, which says pro. So those ones, only if you have a pro account will you be able to actually utilize them. If you don't have a pro account, then you can use as many of these. As you can see, there's quite a lot. There's this one, which is also free. There's that one. There's that one. There's just so many different resumes that you can actually play around on canva.com. So you can design your resume based on what you actually want. So for some of you guys that are looking at simpler resume, this, for example, is one of the simplest resumes that you can do. I'm going to show you what I normally do. So what you can do is you click here, and then it'll give you an option to say preview this template. So you click on preview template, and then it shows you to say, okay, so this is how it's going to come out. It's going to be this name, address. It's going to have career summary, work history. It's going to have relevant project education as well as skills. I'll show you guys why I think skills are very, very important a bit later in this resume discussion. So that's one of the options that you've got. The next option that you've got that I think is normally pretty cool is, for example, this one. This is another option that you can actually look at. And this is what that option looks like. And it's got your contact information on the left-hand side, as well as about you and your professional experience on the right-hand side. This is how you end up being able to actually have a shorter summary document than any other thing. So that's one of the other ways of actually doing that. And then we're just going to jump into one of the most simplest resumes to actually work through. And I'm going to work through my contact information as it is. Which one should I use? Maybe let me use, I'm going to use this one, Mariana's one. So as soon as you open Canva, what it does is that it gives you this option to jump into the other side. And this is what you'll then do. You can then literally increase this. And what it does, as you guys can see, it already starts saying, what do I want to add? Then I can just say Tshidi Khunou. So that's basically that. And then from there, we then have the information about my role, head of TA and employer branding. So then from there, you can then add some of this information here to say, this is what I've done. Roles, when I've been doing this up until where the name of the company. And as you can see, you can do street. However, what I normally sometimes do is you've been in the name of the company, then you've got something else that you want to add here, which could be the city, especially if it's important. And then you then put what the role it is. So in this one will be head of TA. Now, that was probably one of the simplest ways of actually putting together a resume. And as you can see, guys, this is what a lot of people then normally use and sell you this this CV preparation template. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. If you want somebody else to do that for you, definitely that's fantastic. Please go ahead and use their skills. They'll be able to actually do that. And then the next thing that you then have is that you've got expertise. In some cases, you can then change this to skills. For example, what is very important is to say, if I was head of marketing, then I'll obviously have my expertise, UI, UX, visual design, wireframes, storyboarding, user flows, as well as process flows. You can add anything that you want to add here. Languages, you can add the languages that you're looking at. What I always say when it comes to address is, in some cases, please do not ever put your exact address of where you are. What I would say is, if I live in Johannesburg, I'll say Johannesburg, and then I'll say South Africa. And then that's it. Because in these days, you don't necessarily need to actually be physically in the city that you might be looking for a job. And then the degree, you can put your degree here, your qualifications, and all these things. So that's basically how you put in like a resume to make sure that it actually works. So from here, all you do is click here, and then it gives you an option to say share. And what you can do is you can either share this with people that you want to share it with, or if you don't want to share it, you can then say copy link. If you don't want to copy the link, you can just click download. Once you click download, it gives you these options. It says flattened PDF or save download settings. So flattened PDF, this is what it looks like. And then these are some of the things. You can save it as a JPEG. You can save it as a PNG, PDF, PDF print, whichever formats that you might want to do. So that's basically how you put together a resume using canva.com. As I mentioned, it is very, very easy. It's straightforward for anybody that might be looking at doing that. Please feel free to actually go and use canva.com, because then it will give you every single thing that you're looking at going forward. Like I said, there's quite a lot of templates that are pro and free. So you can decide on which one you actually want to use, and then you'll be able to actually go from there. So this is one of the platforms that we currently have that you can actually use from a resume point of view. Now, what I'm going to try and do is to jump back to some of the questions that we then had earlier, and to try and address some of those. So I'm sorry, guys, for some reason, my comments are not coming up on my feed, which is very, very strange, but we will work on that. We'll make sure that it actually shows a bit later. So I'm going to go back to Nokwanda's question where it said, you know, how do we tailor CVs for every job that we apply to without finding ourselves in copying the job description? In that particular instance, my advice is there's a few ways that you can look at it. Number one, the simplest way that you can do it is look at the resume the way it is, or whatever information that the person has provided when it comes to the jobs. Look at the jobs and look at what they've actually highlighted as some of the key things that they're looking for. So they'll normally say, we need somebody with this experience and that experience and that experience. Go back to your own resume and find ways if you have done it, that's only if you have done those things. Find ways of actually going into it and saying, this is what I've done and I've done it this way. And you can then describe it in so many different ways. So that's one of the ways of actually doing it. And you literally go through that. There is another tool that you can also use where it allows you to put together a resume in such a way that it goes and grabs the job spec and highlights the keywords that are very important in that job spec. And all you have to do is just make sure that you start using those. But if we go back to Canva, one of the things that I mentioned when it comes to trying to make sure that you highlight where your skills are very, very similar to what they've got is the beauty about this lovely thing called Canva is I'm going to show you a different resume is that you're able to highlight specific skills that you think are very important for the job. So let me just use this one here, for example. Um, and one of the questions that you asked was, how do you tailor your resume in such a way that it highlights some of the things that you have done, so that it doesn't look like you've actually just copied the job spec as it is. And this is how you do it. So, for example, this is a resume that we've got for, and remember, guys, these are just fictitious names. So it's not anybody. As you can see, even the words here don't make sense at the moment. So, for example, what you then look at is these are some of the things that I always say you ensure that from a job point of view, you go through that company's job, look at what they think are key skills that they're looking for. If you have them, come and showcase them here on the left hand side or anywhere in your resume to make sure that they can see. Because sometimes they'll say they're looking for soft skills. If they're looking for soft skills, then showcase, okay, cool. For the soft skills that I've got, you then need to show them, okay, I've got this, I've got time management, project planning, communication, design, and. So that's one of the options that you've got. The second option that you then have is sometimes you can then also do hard skills. So I'll show you Howard's resume, which allows you to have hard skills. So in that particular instance, this is what it then looks like. Sorry, guys. I hope you guys can see this. So then you can either put a picture. In most cases, I always advise not to put a picture, but in Switzerland, it's been a norm where a lot of times recruiters always ask for pictures. It, for me, is one of the last things that I think anybody should actually put. But that's just my view. The next thing that we've got is, once again, Nokwanda, you come through the job and you look at what they've got. For example, in this instance, I would have assumed that the job is looking for somebody with financial modeling and reporting, somebody with data mining and analysis, somebody with financial accounting, business valuation, as well as advanced SaaS proficiency. So those are normally the key skills that you'll see are normally showcased in the job. So that's how you actually make sure that you tailor your CV to the job that you're actually applying for. And then Mary Thomas Letulo, good afternoon. Nice to see you joining us. Oliver Ring says, how many pages should a CV for a senior manager be ideally? Normally 2 to 3 pages is enough. Anything more than 3 pages sometimes is an overkill. Because as you can see, based on these CV templates that I've got here, you literally have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullet points. So more than 5 bullet points becomes an overkill. So I would say my honest opinion is just 5 bullet points should definitely be enough when it comes to some of these things. Fantastic. Let's see what's the other question that we've got. Should I include all experience on the CV even if they were not relevant to the post? Not always. However, if, for example, you don't have a lot of experience in working or doing certain things, then definitely all experience is important, because there are times where you've actually been a waiter and that's the kind of experience that you've got. I would say add it, because you are actually asking for a role that is different to being a waiter. Then I'll say add that. But in some cases, you also find that you've been working for the last 15 years. Like some of us have been working for 16, 17 years. In that instance, what I would do is the experience that I did more than 15 years ago, I would normally summarize it to 2 bullet points, and that's enough. Unless if somebody then asks me to say, what else did you do in this particular time? Then I'll actually add a bit more than that. But in most cases, I'll just summarize it. And then what's very relevant is what I've done recently. And then that's where I'll make sure that it comes up. The other thing that I always ask guys is that always make sure that your resume is actually in a chronological order. And that by that, I mean, it should be your latest job first, For some reason, every time I touch something, just things start moving. Your latest job, which is the job that you're currently doing or the job that you were doing before you actually start applying for that job. Then the job before this job and up until the last job. Please don't ever put the job that you did 15 years ago at the top, because when I look at your resume, the first thing that I see is your name, surname, and then the job that you did 15 years ago. And then I have to scroll all the way to the 10th page to see what else you've done. So say what you're currently doing and what you did before then and before and before and before, and you run it all the way down. So that's basically one of the things that I look at. I've worked, and then Donald says, I've worked 2 years in financial or insurance industry under my contract ended. I'm struggling. Let's see, sorry. After my contract ended, I'm struggling to find a job in the industry. So I'm currently working as a driver, and I can still put in it on my resume for the experience because I don't want to include it. And I'm asked where I'm doing for the past year. Um, Donald, to be honest, my brother, I would say the fact that you actually went and found a different job is normally sometimes a sign of a different character. It's I would say put it. I wouldn't advise you not to put it, because I think it's a very good storytelling experience where you can actually, sometimes it's also even an icebreaker for the people that are actually interviewing you, where they'll say, oh, I see you a driver, but you come from a financial services sector. How did that come about? And then you're able to explain, listen, I had to make sure that things do happen. So I wouldn't say don't put it. I would say please put it, because it really tells a very beautiful story. So please, if you do have it, if you have things like that, just make sure that you actually add it, because I think it'll be nice to actually have that. Um, and then Post says, please save the live. Yes, if you go to my YouTube page, this will be recorded and saved on my YouTube page, and it will be there. So you can go through some of the things that I've done. You can go through some of these platforms, and I'll also put together the link for canva.com below so that you guys can actually check it out. Like I said, this is not a paid promotion, so I'm not promoting Canva because somebody's paying me to actually do that. And then Nell says, thanks again for the session. Please could you touch on the best way to place highlights in your current role on the job? Is this even necessary? Yes, it is. It is very necessary that you highlight certain things in the job. So I'm going to jump back into my old trust@canva.com. I think this is one of the easiest ways of actually showing you guys how it works, because in most cases we talk about, do this to your resume, do this and do that, but we don't really show you what you need to actually do. So one of the things that I would say you should do is, for example, and I'll give you this as an example. Neo Mufukeng says, should you highlight certain things? Like, for example, if let's say you worked for Goyard International Core Financial Analysis and whatever, you've got the key responsibilities. Under here, below, what you can do is, and this is where you would love Canva.com. As you can see, guys, all I do is just click elements. And then from there, I can then say, I want a text box. Where's my text box? Da, 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 da. So you can add so many different things. No, text. Okay, here's the text. So all I have to do is just say text box. I just click here on this text, and then it gives me something like this. So all I can do is just quickly reduce it in size, stretch it a bit, make sure that it makes sense. This is what I'm trying to show you guys, because I think it's very important. And then you then say, I want this to be in a size 12 format. You click enter. And then you then grab this and you put it down below. So then what I can then do is, then I want to remove this part because I don't need it. You see, it's as easy as just clicking delete and then it's deleted. So here you can then say, for example, achievements. Achievements. Look at me trying to spell achievements. And then you can see saved the company a million. Sorry, that's Swiss francs, guys. So yeah, you saved the company that much money, and that's literally as easy as it is. And I would honestly say, guys, it is a very nice touch when it comes to this. And all you do is literally go here and you say, okay, cool. The font here is Poppins, and then you come here and then you say, okay, I want to make sure that my font here is also Poppins. and then you click here, and then the font is popping, and then you reduce the size of the font to the same size as everything else. So that's all you have to do, and then everything looks uniform. I always think that depending on the job that you have done, it is very nice to always make sure that you put your achievements here, because it literally makes you stand out. After every job that you've done, just put achievements, and then everything will then stand out. People will love what they see, because now it's always easier to say, okay, this is what some of the achievements. And as you can see, guys, this is literally the easiest thing. You can move this any way you want to move it. You can move it up if you want. You can get rid of certain things if you want. And then that's it. That's basically. And what's also very nice, as you can see, I'm sure you can see the lines that Canva starts showing you. As you can see, those are lines that are very, very important to make sure that, as I mentioned, everything should be in line. Okay, so I hope that makes sense based on the question that I just had, and I'm gonna try and go back to so that you guys can see my face again. So thank you so much, Nell, for that question. That was very, very good that you actually did that. And then we also have Mpo is there that said, saved alive. Nice hints. That's Oleboreng. And then we've got Headley John. Yankees, he says, are these ATS friendly? And then you've got Bronya Babudi. Now, ATS friendly resumes. Now, let's jump back into ATS friendly resumes. So, guys, there is so many conversations about ATS friendly. This is not ATS friendly. This is ATS friendly, this and that. So, ATS friendly basically means how easy is it for the system or the ATS that's been created? How easy is it for it to actually read that? What we always say is resumes that are one pager or where the information is on one side is normally ATS friendly. I'll show you some of the examples of what we call ATS friendly resumes. For example, this is what we would consider to be an ATS friendly resume. And the reason why it's also like that, or why we would consider to be ATS friendly, is as you can see, there's very limited pictures into this thing. There's very limited pictures. It's normally words. And what the ATS will then try and do is to extract some of this information to say, because what people will then highlight on the ATS to say, I want this person to have these skills, that skill, that skill, that skill, that skill. If they don't have those skills, I don't want to see them. So what the NTS will then do is they'll look for these keywords to say, okay, multitasking, 10 key, 10 this, 10 that. So those are ATS friendly. It's normally on this. I'll show you what is considered to be non-ATS friendly, where the information is equivalently the same. So for example, a resume like this one. Okay. Almost ATS friendly because the bulk of the information is on the left-hand side and the ATS will dig through something like that. So I will show you, because what we always say is there's a single column resume. Like Maria, for example, there's a single column. The only difference with the second column is that that's where your contact information is actually based. So this is still a great resume to actually use. And then I just want to show you some of the least ATS friendly resumes so that you can actually see what it looks like. Like, for example, this is actually a perfect preview of a resume. This resume is considered to be the least friendly ATS resume because even if you looked at it yourself, you don't know where the information is because everything is equally shared across this. It's got pictures that don't make sense. They've got these little nice graphs. It doesn't always work. ATS friendlies are always very simple. They're easy for you to read if you're looking through them. So that's one of the things. Here's another resume that is definitely not ATS friendly. And I would say avoid something like this because if you can see it, like look at how even the colors themselves, like just from you reading it, if I was the one reading it, for example, as a recruiter, I struggled to read some of this information that's here because they decided to go and become very creative with different colors. So don't use that. Another resume that's not ATS friendly, this might work for the creative industry. It's not ATS friendly, but if it comes to that, and as you can see, remember earlier I also said, make sure that you design a resume per your industry. If you look at this, for me, this says definitely a graphic designer because the format of it, all these things and the graphic, like they went and put in the effort into the graphics of that particular resume. So that then works. Whereas if you look at something like this, for example, where it's got all these things where it says social media, this and that. So this is a social media administrator. This would definitely not be considered to be ATS friendly. But in most cases, we're not going to use that against you. Most companies, we will still go through your resume, regardless of what it looks like. We won't discount you based on a resume because we think it's not ATS friendly. It's just sometimes you'll find that you feature a lot less in some of the searches when somebody looks at the different resumes. Cool. And then, yes, the question, are they ATS compliant? Yes, most of them are. 90% of the ATS compliant. Eric, my man. Listen, guys, I'm so sorry that most of your comments I can't show, but everybody that's on YouTube, I'm somehow able to actually showcase all your comments here. Um, Obviously, Ecamm Live is still busy trying to integrate LinkedIn Live into this whole session. So things are something that will actually be quite nice. These are probably typically American CVs because HR member in Swiss Europe will delete this immediately, unfortunately. Not always. It depends on where we are or what we're looking at. It depends on what the resumes are. The simplicity of a resume, and this is what I want to actually try and go back to some of these things. They're definitely not um, American formats. These are so I'm luckily doing full-time recruitment in Switzerland, in Europe, and this is basically things that we currently use at the moment. We do still get CVs like this, and for me, they are fantastic because they simplify the information that we're looking for, and it's definitely not in any American format or anything. So we love CVs like this because all the information that we're looking for is easy for you to actually see. If somebody says, I've got this number of years of experience. And for me, the first thing that I do is as a recruiter, you're able to see, okay, cool, that's that person's profile. Let me just enlarge that a bit. And you're able to say, okay, cool, skills. They've got these skills, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then that person actually already, before I even read what they were doing, I already know what skills they've got. So definitely not American because I am in the recruitment fraternity in Switzerland and in Europe. And I've luckily worked across most of Europe, recruited people in Italy, in France, in Germany, in Switzerland, and I'm still doing that right now as we speak. So yeah, definitely still very relevant in today's times. Fantastic. Any other questions that I might not have answered, guys? Nokwanda says, at which point of a career do you start removing experience, internships? So you don't always just remove it. You can just list it to say, um, this is where it is. So that's one of the nice things. You can still put the experience that you've had, but you don't have to put all the bullet points. You can just list to say, okay, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. At some stage, after 20 years of experience, internships are not necessarily that important. So even if you don't include them, it'll still be very good. But you can summarize the information. You can say, did junior jobs from this date until this date. And then from there, you start the new jobs that you currently have. Thank you so much, Nakwanda, for that. Um, and then Oliver says, love adding it, the achievement, it gives it so much character. Yes, it does. Because achievements are fantastic. I think that's one of the nicest things about that is that the achievements literally make you stand out because then you're talking the talk. You're not just only talking about certain basic things. And then Mpo says, should I include a section for project conducted and key workshops attended? Only if the job requires you to actually highlight those, then I'd say then you can go ahead and do that. But if the job doesn't require you to actually do that, then by all means, then you definitely don't need to actually add those, especially where you attended conferences, because we find that you attend quite a lot of conferences. If you attend 20 conferences in a year, you can't put them in your resume. However, when it comes to key workshops where you were a keynote speaker or a speaker in that, I think that would be nice to actually include that. And then projects concluded. And sometimes you'll find that project concluded could be added under achievements because if that project was very, very good and it added a lot of value, then that's also very, very fantastic. Thank you, Eric. Eric says, I did not mean the structure, but the many colors in the graphics. Yes, the colors. And that's why we say, guys, try and simplify your resume. And I fully agree. Like with what Eric is saying, unless you actually are in the artsy graphic design space, I would say simplify your resume. Try and make sure that it's just one color. It's mostly black and white, And like I said, there is plenty of free templates on Canva. So if you ever want to go check it out, all you have to do is just create an account. It is free to create an account. And then you go in and you look at the free templates and you're able to start using that. So I would say, please, if you can, go ahead and use canva.com and create your best resumes. I think those are some of the last questions that I currently have. In order to not make this into something that it's not, I think I'm going to end there. But before I end there, I just want to highlight one or two things that I mentioned to you guys earlier. Number one is when it comes to formatting your resume, the do's: format your resume to fit 1 to 2 pages or 3 pages. 2, be consistent through your resume. 3, use only standard circular bullet points. 4, use short sentences and bullet points to emphasize your strengths. 5, organize your content under appropriate headers. 6, match your resume style to your industry. Remember, I keep on highlighting this, guys. Don't go become a graphic designer when you're trying to ask for a developer, or you're trying to become a recruiter. Just match the industry to that. And lastly, proofread your resume to make sure that it's actually saying what you wanted to say. And then do not use colorful fonts that do not make sense. Exactly what Eric was saying. People will throw it out and it won't add value. Do not insert unnecessary tables and graphs and all these other colors or funny little graphics. Please avoid doing that. Select resume templates or formats that are appropriate for your current goals and backgrounds. And always make sure that whenever you put that, it shows your skills, because it is very nice to make sure that your skills are there. Try and avoid cramming too much information and unnecessary information into that. If part of your job was to answer calls, but you did 50 other things that I think are a lot more valuable, leave out the calls part and speak about the other 50, the other 7. Most roles, you can just literally summarize some of the information into one bullet point. Try and justify your bullet points, because where the bullet points are all over the place, it looks like you didn't know what you were doing. And then lastly, please do not use all caps, because it ends up looking like you are screaming at us. Like I said, guys, Top of the Morning with Tshidi. This video that I've just recorded right now will be on my YouTube channel. So if you ever want to check it out, and I'll keep on sharing it also for some of the guys that might have missed it out. So please make sure that you've got it. And then the last, I'm just going to ask one last question, and then we can cut off the feed. Does one need to attach supporting documents, copy of resumes and things like that? No. Normally, when it comes to companies' ATSs, they'll have a section that says resume. Please only attach your resume. Don't try and attach your certificates, your this, your that under something that says resume, because what they would normally have as well is to say other, and then they'll normally ask for some of that information. And where they've got specific things where they're asking for certificates, they'll normally even label to say certificate, so you can list or attach all your certificates there. So be careful to attach unnecessary stuff, because as soon as you get it, normally you've got 5 megabytes to actually load. You've attached 10 certificates, it doesn't fit, then you have a problem and you're panicking. Keep your resume separate from your different attachments. Just keep them separate. And then lastly, thank you so much for taking notes. Would a Microsoft MS Word or PDF be preferable? Both of them are preferable. In some cases, I always say keep it as a PDF, because PDF is it doesn't lose the format of it even when you do CV parsing. Word documents have got very strange things. Sometimes it goes to certain systems and it starts doing really, really strange things. So I'd say just sometimes just use your normal Word document. That should be perfect. Top of the morning, once again, guys, please do not forget to go check out my YouTube page. All you have to do is just search for my name. Just search for Tshidi Khunou. You'll find me there. You'll find me on YouTube. Go through all the videos. Some of them will actually help you guys. And when you do actually get some of these things where things are working out and you're excited, or you actually benefiting from these things, please do share that. And I will definitely make sure that all that information is available. Top of the morning, until we meet again. Cheers.